What if the biggest problem with AI today isn't the technology, but how we're trying to use it? Every organization wants AI. Every boardroom is talking about it. Every executive roadmap now includes it. Yet, nearly 80% of AI initiatives fail before delivering meaningful business value. So, what separates the companies that struggle from the ones quietly transforming their industries? Welcome to XTraw AI, your podcast series focused on extracting the raw AI conversations, where we go beyond hype and explore how AI is actually reshaping enterprises, industries, and decision making. I'm your host, Raghu Banda, enterprise architect and AI advisor. And today we're diving into one of the most important conversations in AI adoption, moving from experimentation to execution. Joining us today is Sebastian Chedal, a technology leader and AI strategist with over 25 years of experience helping organizations navigate digital transformation and AI implementation. As founder of Fountain City and co-founder of TestFox.ai, Sebastian works with enterprises to answer a critical question. How do you become part of the 20% of AI initiatives that succeed instead of the 80% that fail? Today, we'll unpack why AI projects struggle, what leaders misunderstand about adoption, and why testing, validation, and strategy may matter more than algorithms themselves. Let's get started.
All right, welcome back. So today we are going to have, welcome back to our XTraw AI podcast series in the new year. We are recording in the third week of January. Welcome on board, Sebastian.
Thank you.
So today we are going to talk an interesting topic. I know there's a lot of AI going on around. And now we know that there is this thing that most of these AI projects, we get into the prototyping phase pretty quickly, but when you are trying to realize or go live, there are a lot of these projects fail. So today, the topic is, we want to discuss about how to be in the top 20% of AI projects that succeed. And I'm here with talking with Sebastian Chedal. He's a technologist, a founder, and an AI workflow strategist. He's got about 25 years in digital transformation. He's founder of Fountain City, a co-founder of TestFox.ai. Sebastian helps leaders become part of the 20% of AI initiatives that succeed, not the 80% that fail. So that is an interesting conversation we are going to have today, Sebastian. So before we get into the conversation, I have, as always, I do some kind of a background conversation, like maybe about your journey, your personal or professional journey. I know you moved from traditional transformation to now focusing more on the AI-driven modernization. Can you explain us your journey, how you ended up here?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. So my journey has gone through many twists and turns. I'm a serial entrepreneur, so to speak. I've started a couple nonprofits, a game company, and 2 tech companies. Right now, my 2 active companies are both the tech ones, so Fountain City and TestFox that you mentioned. I started off my career just really interested and passionate in a lot of different things, technology subjects, but also creative areas. I did a lot with like web design, but then in parallel, I was doing network security, network design, worked at British Telecom a little bit there, doing that kind of backbone internet things. And things just kept evolving over time, and started at Fountain City very long time ago in the world of tech. So like 1998 is when it started. And over the years, we've evolved and pivoted as either needed or as opportunities changed. We were at one point a Drupal shop, and then Drupal 8 came out and really changed the target customer demographic. It became more enterprise focused, more large business. And all our clients at the time were more mid-sized, and so it didn't really fit for them. So then we pivoted then as well. And but yeah, over the years, one thing that's been very consistent is working for a lot of manufacturing companies, especially in the last 5, 10 years. That's become even more prominent. And
Mm-hmm.
so with the, I think it was in 23, 24, we were keeping our eyes really, we were really watching the developments in AI, generative AI. And in 24, October, that's when we made a more cognizant pivot to become even more focused on AI transformation, AI projects. And because I mean, I can talk for a while about the what's going on with the agency world and
Mm-hmm.
evolution of tech, but there was this combination that we were seeing of if you're building websites or web apps or anything digital, you have the SaaS companies that are constantly making better products to build websites or web solutions, and then you have overseas, whether it's near shore, offshore, that's constantly getting better and cheaper as well. So it kind of creates this shrinking mid space, where you have to move more and more strategic in order to stay
Right.
ahead in the US market and European market as well. And so, and our team was really interested in doing more and more AI things. And we had a lot of internal AI, I wouldn't call it free time, but like people were on their own initiative doing AI experiments, AI projects, or building AI servers, training AI systems, and we would share all the things we're learning. And then we decided to just go for it as we
Mm-hmm.
hit the end of 24, mainly because we had a really big digital transformation project we were doing for a manufacturing company, and that was ending. And so it gave us an opportunity to kind of rethink. It was a good point to rethink where we're going. And so all of last year has been just a heavy shift into focusing a lot on this phase of digital tech transformation right now, which is all very focused on AI. And then, a lot of the hype right now we're in this kind of deflationary period where people have gotten exposed to a lot of hype, or they've tried AI a
Yeah.
little bit and their
Mm-hmm.
minds are blown, but then they try to apply it and they're like, wait, this isn't actually delivering what the magic that I thought it was, or, my initial interest
Right. Right.
is just, I feel disappointed now. How do I get this? And there's many reasons for which
True.
we're going
True.
to go into for all these issues and concerns. But so I've been speaking a lot to that, and then helping companies through that process, whether that's us road mapping, planning projects, or me working as an advisor consultant here and there for different companies as well, doing workshops, and then of course doing implementation projects. So that's been it's been a lot of what's been going on since October 24.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That's a great journey. I think you have there, pivoting from digital transformations into the AI modernization world. I know, like
Mm-hmm.
like you mentioned, like 26, 27 years back when you started your first companies, and then working on that and transitioning further.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get into the actual conversation, I would like
Yeah.
to know, I think you talk mostly about like these AI projects fail because of
Mm-hmm.
strategy or process or maybe validation, but not exactly because of technology, right? I think this is was there a moment that triggered you that this was made painfully obvious for you, that you have decided that, yeah, I have to get into this, I have to solve this problem for my customers, not only for me but for my customers?
Mm-hmm. Yes, for sure. I think it's a mixture of things going on. It feels a lot today like the early internet did in 95, 98, where businesses are wondering, do I even need this? What is this? Back in the late 90s, if you said to a business you need a website, a lot of them are like, we don't need a website. Why would we need a
Right.
website? And now it would be crazy to have a business with of any size that doesn't have any kind of web presence at all. And yeah, a lot of what's going on right now feels like sometimes I feel like we're early at the party, so to speak.
Yeah.
There's a lot of education that needs to happen right now. I had, for example, a talk last year with executives from companies, some companies that they themselves are building AI products or AI models, and their middle upper management still doesn't have a lot of AI experience. So even within organizations that are themselves AI forward, these large companies, they don't have that experience yet. Things are moving so fast, and people, there's this new generation, let's say the people who are 15, 12 years old, 20, 25, and maybe they're just gobbling it up and they're using it for everything right now, or they're trying to use it in their school projects, even though the teacher doesn't want it. But then you have all the people who are still running, who are running businesses, who are in their, maybe they're 50, 60 years old or 40, whatever it might be, their age doesn't really matter, but it's just the fact that people are kind of set in their ways and they have certain processes, and there can be distrust of AI or fear of AI, or yeah, and so it's a really big shift that happened really suddenly in a way. Even though there's been an incremental improvement of these generative AI systems, it really kind of hit mainstream fast. And there was just this tipping point with ChatGPT and its very rapid adoption. And so there's many layers to the AI readiness or capability or knowledge of a business. And it's one thing to be dabbling with AI and to kind of get a general sense of it. And then it's another to try and understand how to implement it. And I know you said that a lot of the issues are non-technical, which is true. And I'll probably be talking about those today. But there are also some technical limits of AI as well. And if you don't understand what these AI systems are currently good at and not good at, you can also lead yourself astray into problems too. You might have your AI doing math problems for you when you could just have a normal programming script take two variables and do the math on it, right? Like those are situations where you're asking for trouble because these generative AI systems are probabilistic. They're qualitative decision makers, not deterministic systems. So if you're trying to make deterministic decisions with a generative AI system, you're increasing your error rate, as an example. So yeah, right now there's a lot of education, a lot of different reasons for failure. I'm happy to go deeper into that when we're ready. And so the education is just necessary right now for where we're at in the market. I don't think this is going to be as needed in 5 or 10 years. It might be needed for something new, but not for the current thing that we're driving through, current stage.
True. I think glad that you brought up this comparison between the dot-com era boom and also later on the cloud era boom and other things. And now if you compare how this AI transformation is happening, I think there is some kind of a thing that it is fundamentally a bit more different than what happened, whether it is with the dot-com boom, where businesses were trying to build and then they were trying to start with some websites which are needed and now I think it's pivoting in a different way. I know you've worked with major companies like Heineken, Sony Ericsson, or so on and so forth. Are there some patterns that you see these are consistently happening on how these organizations are approaching AI and where where they might be going a bit wrong? Basically, when we are talking about, you're coming from you briefly mentioned about the internet revolution and then later on the digital transformation, and now we are talking about the AI modernization. Many of the big firms, I know there are a lot of unicorns coming in, but many of the big firms, how do you see that they see this kind of AI modernization happening? Are there some patterns that you could consistently see where some of these firms might be going wrong when they talk about AI modernization?
Yeah, so I think I would categorize that in a few different ways. So first, we have just typical traditional challenges related to change management. Because in the end, it's a new transformation, new change management. All the typical methodologies, concerns, and solutions around change management apply. You can't approach, if you have a company that's wanting to change a process and it's going to change how people have been working, you need to work with the people in that organization and make sure you're getting adoption and, to talk more about that. But change management is important. I think within that, though, there is a nuance, which is that there's AI resistance. There's many different reasons for that. There's concerns about job security. There's intrinsic existential fears about AI. There's just the name itself, artificial and intelligence, is kind of challenging to, if it was called something else, if it was called, qualitative, if it was called a probability machine, and it would be describing itself as a random text output based on input system, and that was the acronym or something like that, that would also be less triggering for people. But yeah, so in any case, there's that element as well, which is generally solved through education, I will say, just very quickly. That's a really kind of the best solution possible to AI resistance, is just teaching people strengths and weaknesses of AI so they really understand it, and then people become immediately less threatened by it, is what I'm seeing, and also the studies show. The other category of going back to what I was answering for the different categories, the other category is to think about is that AI projects are different than other projects. And so if you approach them just purely like you would a traditional software project, you're going to hit problems. It's not just put this AI in here, done, right? You can't just, there's sometimes I've seen companies just have mandates, 20% of our processes should be using AI by the end of the year, or let's give all our programmers AI. We should see a 30% increase in productivity. Why aren't we seeing that? So and I think that has a lot to do with that lack of understanding still of where it's good and where it's not. And also process and data is two really big things. So AI, you're only going to get as good of an output from these systems as you have the data and the processes to support it. So I work a lot with clients that are in manufacturing, and that sector in particular. A lot of companies don't have formalized process, even though they're quite big. They could be 40 million, 80 million or more revenue per year. But their process, let's say for sales, is I've got my cell phone with my contact list in it, and when a call comes in, I give it to whoever on my team I feel is best suited for that. And how quick they call back clients is based on their personal preferences or experience, whatever. So there's no formalized sales process in there. And then, so we've had manufacturing companies, for example, come to us and ask us to help them bring in AI within their sales engineering process so that they can get custom quotes generated for clients, not only faster because the AI is helping to automate some of those sales steps, but also to help them get those initial engineering quotes designed as a baseline floor, let's say 80% accurate, so that the engineer has less work to do those custom builds. So there's AI in those different places, but then if there's no process, then you can't really, you have to do the process first. So there has to be a process there. And then the data is the other part, and data is more critical right now than it's ever been. So, how much data do you have? Are you tracking data as you go, like recording calls, recording data down? The more information you have, the more data, the more services, AI services you can plug into that. And the less likely you're going to end up with, there's a lot people on the internet right now are calling it like AI slop. So if you have, because AI in the end is like I said, a probability machine. If you ask it, give me a like for example, if you say, give me a marketing plan, it's going to give you the most common, most talked about AI plan, not necessarily the best one, but the one that is the most current in its database and its knowledge. And so you're going to get like vanilla flavored, and it's going to be so generic that it's might be helpful if you've never seen a marketing plan and it gets you thinking, but it's definitely not going to be directly catered to your specific business
Yeah,
and
market.
marketing strategy you should be applying, so data process. The other thing too is right now when AI systems sometimes or AI agents are given too much agency. And by that, I mean that we put them into a process, let's say, it's very broad. Let me get an AI, let's just give me an AI agent or a chat bot, a browser window to Claude or ChatGPT or whatever. And I'm going to use that to try and solve all my business needs from that one agent. Or you're going to build an automation and you're going to have that automation, an agent try and do many things. All the successes that we've seen, and that I've also, done a lot of research on the internet as well through looking at other companies and what projects are succeeding. The ones that succeed have very clear narrow band focus for these AI systems. So either it's going to be one workflow, one process, and that AI within it has very narrow functions that it's doing. If you think of a robot in a car factory, that one robot is doing one job and it does that one job really well. So you could be having an agentic system making decisions, but it's making one particular kind of decision within a larger framework and it's trained to make that one decision. So good qualitative example, not necessarily the most useful example, but just an easy one to understand would be an agent listening to your inbox, let's say, for your email. And all it has to do is detect if someone is saying, I don't know, let's say you run websites and you've got a website down message that comes to your inbox. If it finds that, send another thing off to send you a text message or something like that. You could then, if you're having a hard time having that agent determine if it's an urgent issue or not, you might actually put a second agent after the first. First one just detects, is this a site outage or let's say site issue, a problem. And then the second one makes a determination on the urgency. And if it can't figure it out, always defaults it to urgent, meaning you might have, well, let's get those false positives texted to me anyway, because I don't want to miss the site outage. So kind of cascading them in a row can help you, because each one is doing a very narrow job, helps you to make sure that each one's not going to have as many problems or have a high error rate of determination and stuff like that. So either very clear process workflows, or the equivalent of that is also very clear logic workflows, because sometimes we've got a couple projects running right now where what we're doing with the client is to build an agentic system that helps to replicate the kinds of strategic thinking or high level thinking that a person is doing for a client. So you kind of have to map out that logic into a web or a flow if you want to get really high accuracy of the AI system truly replicating how you think through a problem. So diagramming basically is really important for that.
So I think I want to take a pause here. I think I would like to get a bit more into I know you have beautifully laid out how the things are happening here, and it's not easy to box in AI. So when you talk about how you are applying AI to your processes, I think you gave some beautiful thoughts about how the manufacturing companies, when you're working with them, how processes and data are important. And when we talk about AI, it's more like probabilistic rather than deterministic. So getting down there further, I would like to get into now the aspects of why do you think these 80% of the projects or AI projects or AI initiatives are failing? Are there any common mistakes happening across with your experience or with the things that you are noticing, and how do we address them? Maybe two questions there.
Sure, yeah. I did touch on some of them already, but let me just recap by kind of listing them all out in one go. So I would say it's one or more of these factors. So lack of expertise, meaning not understanding the AI limits and capabilities. The next would be a lack of process or logical framework, which I already talked about. Too much agency, which is kind of related to that, so letting the AI do too much on its own. Issues with data quality, whether that's not enough data or the data is not well organized. meta grouping of data engineering tasks and so forth weren't done or weren't done completely. The next category would be a lack of testing. People right now trust way too much that the AI system is going to work, or they're not even thinking about testing AI. We, meaning the industry, has been doing traditionally a good job of testing traditional software products, but AI testing, AI evals is still pretty new, and there's so many AI systems that we see that just haven't been tested properly. And then the people get frustrated, and then they think, AI is not ready, and they just get rid of it or roll back or say it's a failure when they just didn't test. The next would be not having a clear strategy or just wanting to do experiment-driven projects or work. Instead of it being ROI focused, we're gonna make this project have a very clear output in terms of improvement of either time or money saved, and then we're going to quantify against that. So having that in place is really important. Experiment driven, I just mentioned that, but I'll just call it out. So if you're only experimentationally driven, those projects have a very high fail rate because they're not thought through. A lot of AI initiatives are from the enthusiastic person in the company. And someone yesterday was just telling me about that again. There's this company is behind an AI, but one person in the team is very enthusiastic. They're just wanting to pilot and push a project out to the whole company, but it's just coming from this either one or individual or small team, but it's not really thought through fully. There's no change management, there's no implementation plan, maybe there's no testing, all these other problems come back. And then the last reason for failure that I'm seeing is that they're too big. So they're trying to and so it is important to have a vision. I call it like a aspirational goal that you're trying to achieve. And then the next step is to then break that down into concrete, smaller steps that get you there, and making sure that each one of those has a quantifiable ROI. So quick example, if you wanted to create, let's say, a virtual sales engineer, going back to what I was just talking about, and that sales engineer would be able to train new engineers that you hire, help you generate engineering quotes for custom solutions, answer customer problems, all these different things. It's like, okay, well, I just listed a few different things it can do. What is the first thing we can do to kind of work towards that goal that has a concrete benefit, but that also is building towards that aspirational goal? So then you end up with a roadmap that can be, 1 to 3 years long, let's say. But within that, you have projects that are 3 to 12 months at most, maybe more like 3 to 9, 3 to 6 months long mini projects that each give you a quantifiable step. They're like modular pieces towards that larger goal. So that's a better way to approach it. So those are the main reasons for failure.
Beautiful. I think you've laid out many of the reasons why some of these projects fail and why 80% of these projects fail. So let's now get into how TestFox.ai or what you guys do, and how do you help the customers solve some of these problems or some of these issues, or what is the methodology that you folks do? So maybe if you can give a bit of a concept and how you guys address this, I think it will be helpful.
Yeah, so the first thing I want to do when I either enter a new company or the company wants to start a project with us, or I'm asked to come in and consult for a company, is I look at these things. So I look at, is there a roadmap planning? Do we have a long-term vision of where we're going? Have people been thinking about also change management? I also look at AI readiness across different domains. So something to not forget about as well is like, are there policies around AI governance, for example, on how to use or not use AI? Are people using AI within the company roguely because there's no standard policy? So now there's other risks in there, so I try and make sure that there's these high level things in place, or kind of get a quick sense of where are the biggest needs. And then when it comes to the actual project planning themselves, I try and make sure that we've got a narrow vertical, so to speak, focus within the AI initiatives. They have clear ROIs. The data that it needs is well defined. processes for that project are well defined, for the, agentic systems are well defined. We're using the AI in the right places. We're not using AI to do deterministic automations. Sometimes there's an automation that needs to be done. So first principles I also look at as well. If we're trying to, let's say someone in the company is the bottleneck and they don't have enough time, they have all the critical knowledge in their head. And so the company wants to use AI to help answer questions that people are asking that person, whether they're clients or internal, to kind of alleviate that bottleneck. Well, the fundamental problem is this person doesn't have enough time. Let's look at where they're spending their time first and see how we can free up their time. Because sometimes there's something that can be done that's not even a fancy AI thing, where you can win a lot of their time very quickly. So we had one case where, in this specific example, someone who was very technical, they just weren't batching their answers that they were giving people who are asking. They were just answering questions all day long as they come in. And just that very quick batching already saved them a few hours a week while we get started with the AI initiatives. So don't forget first principles to kind of address, solve the problem you're trying to solve. Don't just try and get the right screw into the hole when you need a hammer to kind of nail some things in first. But and then make sure there's testing in the project, that it's not being skipped or not considered. And then beyond that, how are we going to monitor the system, create incremental improvements into it over time? How are we going to be tracking learning? So if a system, let's say it's a knowledge system, and people ask questions and the AI doesn't have answers to that, are we also monitoring for those questions so that we can add that data into there if it was an oversight, whether that's customer facing or internal, so that we're also iterating and improving upon the system too.
Okay, beautiful. So some of these aspects, I think you folks look into this and then you help understand the business process. I think if the business processes are laid out properly, do you have the right data? Do you have the right context? And where is all this information available? And then make the proper decision making. I think this is where you could also leverage AI in doing some smart AI decision making. There are, of course, when I go into these aspects, of course, from my personal experience as well, I see some of the business leaders might be misunderstanding AI as well, right? I think there are aspects of costs associated when you are implementing using some of these technologies, or there might be some instances where there might be some risks when you're trying to implement or use some newer technologies, or timeline, or overall expectations. Because if I'm trying to implement or embed AI into a particular process to make it faster, like you briefly explained, like maybe how do you help that particular sales engineer or that particular engineer who has a lot of knowledge so that they can focus and put these efforts on other aspects rather than maybe spending too much of your time here. So is there a particular thing that you looked into where these business leaders are misunderstanding AI, whether it is cost or risks or timelines or overall expectations?
Sorry, if I can rephrase your question, it's where are we helping business leaders to focus the most across those different domains that you mentioned? Yeah. I think it really depends a bit on the company. So some companies are thinking really well about cost and cost improvements, but maybe they're not thinking about change management or AI governance and risks associated with that. Other companies are too optimistic and they're not creating enough time for proof of concepts in the initial stages and validating the value. Other companies are too conservative. So it depends a little bit on where the company's at. Also, which people in the company have AI fluency. There are a lot of companies, like I was saying, the issues are that managers are being told to, managers or business leaders or executives or upper management, depends, are being given directives to make these AI projects happen, but they have, I mean, honestly, some of them still haven't even used ChatGPT for more than, one or two quick little things. So I think the first step really is just to ask questions and listen to get a good understanding of where they're at and to understand what is going to make the biggest impact to be able to start moving that client or that company towards a path of success. Yeah,
So
I don't
you,
know if I'm answering your question sufficiently there, but that's it. I wouldn't say that it's, yes, there are patterns, there are things that I see that happen over and over, but
Mhm.
it's not always the same pattern and it's not always the same answer. It first depends
Right.
on, I would say that maybe put it this way, like an AI readiness self-assessment. I have a YouTube video on that and a blog post if we want to put it in the podcast notes. But that process of doing first a self-evaluation of where your company's at, I think could be a really good first step to kind of answer what you're trying to ask me, because that highlights what area, if you're going to be addressing your AI readiness in general in order to start implementing these projects, that is a good place to start. Because if you self-evaluate and you're like, oh yeah, we've got a team that is really enthusiastic about AI and we've got the internal knowledge, but we have no AI governance defined at all. You have a disproportionate strength in one area and a weakness in another. So it follows the rule of a chain with the weakest link. So if your weakest link happens to be AI governance, you should really prioritize getting at least some basic AI governance in place for the rest of your company, and also that AI team to limit risks of data leak exposure or unforeseen costs happening that you didn't expect. I mean, AI can get extremely expensive if you're not careful, for example, but that's a whole other topic. So yeah, that self-assessment I think can be a good way to kind of get a quick temperature check on yourself to know where it is you should be focusing the most. And for a lot of companies that are at the beginning, I would say it's just basic education and then maybe level 2 education on top of that, which would be, okay, how do I use AI within my process manually, right? Like an augmented workflow. And then level 3 would be, now I have AI doing processes for me, but I'm in the process. And then step 4, level 4 would be, I have AI processes, agentic systems doing work on their own, and I'm just monitoring them, right? So step 1 is, how do I even use AI? Step 2 is, how do I use AI manually to help augment my work? Level 3 is, I'm in the loop with an AI system, part of it. And then 4, I'm on the loop monitoring an AI system.
Right. So I think the level 4 is where the ultimate goal, I think many of these firms, whether it is small, medium, large, would be attaining or will be focusing on getting there pretty soon. But I believe the level, I think many firms currently, I think while they are, because this term of agentic AI, if you see, I think it's really gained so much of popularity since the last couple of quarters. I think many companies and many firms, I think this is the first question they come up. Okay, what kind of agents do you have? How can I implement or how can I embed in a particular process and make it happen? But what you're mentioning is that there are a few other steps that you have to do ahead of getting into this stage. And that is where it should never be coming the top down kind of an approach where you're saying that, hey, we are going to do these kind of things, but rather than you go maybe depending on the situation or depending on the use case or depending on the scenario or the business process where you are coming in from, and then implement and take it one step at a time. I like the way you have approached, where you have explained, like before even doing any particular adding AI initiatives, you start with something like an AI readiness check. What kind of things are available? Or is this particular process even so basically do a readiness check and see if this particular process is available to have this AI embedded into that, or maybe have some kind of agency embedded into that. So I like some of these aspects. From TestFox AI automation that you guys are doing and helping in this process, could you pick up an example? We don't need to talk the names of the customers for the confidentiality purposes. How do you think you can create a difference in your customers? So maybe if you can take an example and explain, would be.
You said how do I blank a difference in the customer? What was the word you said there? Sorry.
Yeah.
What was the word?
How can you create? How can you help the customers create or gain that particular advantage while using TestFox?
Okay. Thank you for restating the question. Yeah. So TestFox is a SaaS platform tool. What it does is it helps teams, whether they're QA teams or the dev team's QA department, set up a set of tests they can run on their AI system. It can test any system that is conversational. So that could be a chat bot, could be external or internal, but it could also be an agentic system that you engage with conversationally. So anything that's conversational could be AI to AI systems. And so what we do is, or what the tool does, is it allows you to set up a series of prompts. Those prompts could be single prompts that you send and you get back an answer. And then you set up also the expected answer you're going to get. And then we use AI within the tool to then evaluate if the answer that the system you're testing is close to the expected answer that you want to be seeing from that question. And if so, then maybe you get an 80% or 100% score on, because we rank it on a score, and the default is 60% or higher as a pass. Of course, you probably want 80% for your answer. And then anything below that is a fail. And so you can see why, then it's up to you to see, why is my AI system not answering the way I would expect it. But you can also set up goals. So instead of saying, I want to send this question and here's the answer I want to get, you could ask our system to, let's say, talk to your AI service chatbot with a goal of getting a refund on their product. But you set the scenario up that the product is out of warranty by a month. And then you set up your expected response. Maybe you expect the AI system to give you an exception on that, or maybe you don't. I don't know. That's up to the company's policies. And then you launch TestFox to start that conversation with your service agent. And then at the end, the AI evaluator evaluates and then gives a score on that too. But you can set up all kinds of tests. You could be doing tests for bias. You could be doing tests for knowledge accuracy, hallucination. You can do tests on jailbreaking, legal liability issues that you're worried about, EU AI Act compliance. You can also test on that. So it's flexible, and you set up your categories based on the different types of tests you're doing. So, your compliance tests would go in one category, for example, different from your pre-sales questions or support questions. And then it has graphing charting tools to show you if you're burning down all the issues to zero so that you're ready for launch. As internally, you can review how well your AI system is doing and then decide if you're ready to make a release. So yes, it's basically a framework that helps people do testing of their AI systems.
Beautiful. So now I'll get into the interesting part of the conversation. I term this as the extra AI question, or the $1 million question.
Sure.
I know there's a lot of competition out there. We have a lot of different AI tools coming out there, solution providers coming out there. How do you folks differentiate, or is there some kind of a uniqueness, or maybe some particular things that sets you apart, or is there anything that you might want to
Hmm.
say that how you folks are different or you folks make it worth for the customer.
So when we've looked at a bunch of other tools out there because it is a fresh new field, this field of AI testing with AI.
Right.
And our biggest differentiator is that we're very friendly focused on both managers and QA testers who are non-technical. So there's a lot of these eval systems that are very technical. So it's a developer setting up their evals themselves. And then they're, either programmatic or they're JSON strings or things like that in order to do their evals. And there's different kinds of ones there. So it's very user friendly to set up the tests and to run them and the charting and so forth. It's very focused on also how a project manager would want to be reviewing the results to see how things are going and to get that confirmation that we're approaching, ready state for launch. So that's that's our biggest differentiator, I would say, is just the broad
Something like
appeal
a
and use and
role-based
the usability. Hmm.
usability and something like a role-based kind of a
Hmm.
testing approach that you could do on the
Yes.
different things. Yeah.
Oh, and another differentiator is that a lot of tools, you have to send your conversations to the test system, but we do it the other way around. So you open up your AI system for us to send messages to and get a response. So we're simulating conversations to your system rather than monitoring conversations that your system is having. So it's just a different architectural setup. We may eventually add also the other path that other platforms are doing where we monitor conversations that are being had. But right now the tool is it's either meant to do periodic checks on certain things that you want to make sure are still valid or to test AI systems before a major update or release. Or maybe you've never tested at all and you want to do a big test rundown. So it's very production ready focused, I would say, which is also a distinguishing factor.
So a follow-up question on that, right? I think is it more like since it's like more like a SaaS service, are you embedded into the customer's processes, or is it runs like a service, or is it like an API call that makes and kind of it's through that?
It's a separate server that we run. You set up your own AI system that you want to use. So you could use with an API key. So you could be using an AI service from, Gemini or Anthropic. Gemini's Google, or OpenAI. But you could also use your own private AI system to be running the tests. And then we make an API call, could be a JSON, what's it called? A REST API call to your system. And then we get a response back from your system, and then that's what we store. So if you have REST API exposed or accessible on your chat system, it's very easy to integrate and it's not embedded within your system at all. It's you could think of it as instead of someone coming to your AI system to chat with it, it's this SaaS product that goes to your system and chats with it. And if it's an internal system, then obviously, we're going into your internal system to chat with it. But you could create, a pipe where you just allow our IP in, for example, to do that if you're worried about security. So, does that clarify how it works?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, definitely. I think that gives a better idea about how you folks are different and how you're handling this. So I know we are coming to the close. We are coming to the end of the conversation, but before I let you go, I have a couple more questions.
Sure.
So if a business leader is listening to this conversation, what are those 3 things about AI success? If they want to take it away, what should they be? Like, if they want to remember some 3 things about AI success.
I would say focus first on make sure you have a vision and not a mandate, and that vision is something that the team or the company really gets behind. The next would be make sure that you're thinking about data, process, structure, vertical alignment within those solutions, that they're very clearly defined. And then the third would be making sure that you have the education, awareness, and that kind of that feedback process within your teams or your projects, so that you're learning, you're adapting, your projects themselves are able to continuously improve, so that you're iterating towards success as well, so that, you know, if something were to go wrong, you're learning from it and you can apply those lessons to the next iteration or next version of the solution.
Beautiful. Any suggestions or recommendations that the executives should stop doing immediately when it comes to AI? I know this is one question keeps lingering the minds of business leaders, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think mandates don't generally work. You know, mandate would be by the end of this year, 20% of our processes should be AI, because it's just not something that's easy for people to get inspired by or get behind.
Right.
A vision would be more, you know, how can you rephrase something so that it's something that benefits the team rather than just saves the top of line of the company, the top bottom line, or, you know, whatever it is, savings for the whole company. So vision would be more, you know, we're going to bring AI in to help everyone do less work or do more of the things that they love, or you know, something like that is going to still achieve the same maybe ultimate outcome of 20% adoption, but it's being structured in a way where it's something that's inspiring and interesting and valuable to me on the team. I'm like, yeah, I want to stop doing this mundane routine work. I want to be doing more of the things that are interesting and exciting to me. So stopping mandates is good, and then making sure that that education is there. I think education is probably the most important thing for most companies right now, on all levels, from the bottom up to the top. So
right.
Stop. I guess there would be stop trying to just do projects without also focusing on the educational part of it, so that people understand how these systems work and don't work, and how they benefit them and don't benefit them, and so forth.
Right. That's great. I think, yeah, that awareness and education is very much important for all kinds of firms, small, medium, and large, and all. Yeah. Before I let you go, I think one last question. What do you see? I know there is a lot happening here. What do you see as the future of AI, not in the headlines, but in real business operations over the next 5 years? I think maybe 5 years is too long a time. I would say maybe the next 2-3 years. What do you feel that is happening, or what should happen?
I think, well, there's lots of different things that are trending right now, but I think the overall more and more companies and processes are going to become human on the loop, not in the loop. So AI systems working independently and autonomously. The last month, I've been focusing a lot actually on programming practices, writing code, and how I'm already seeing, both internally in our company and in clients and on the web, we're shifting more towards AI working in a team of agents that plans, codes, does its own debugging, does its own structural evaluation of its own code, and then just gives you back an output like, I'm done, or like, ready for you to confirm it's done. You know, right now, a lot of programmers are still using AI more like it's the robot next to them and it's an arm and it's trying to pass them a screwdriver and they're frustrated, as opposed to my, you know, former example where you've got a whole team that's more like 10 robots all working on a car on their own, and you're just up in the little control tower trying to make sure your robots are doing what you want them to be doing. So there's going to be more and more of that general shift towards people managing, setting up, monitoring AI systems, people working more and more at a very high level, documentation, process definition, specifications, diagramming, it's more important than ever. Right now you can get by in a lot of areas of work with just kind of iteratively working on it, or kind of having an abstract goal and then moving towards that abstract goal. But with these AI systems, you really want to spend 2 to 3 or 4 times more of the time that you used to spend on the planning and strategy and thinking. Why are we doing this? What should it be doing? How is it going to work? What are all the ways it could fail? Let me think about all those things up front. You're doing way more of that kind of high level thinking, and then the execution is going to become more and more trivial. So people are going to be the demand for people's focus is, of course, people to people is never going away, right? So that part, I think, is protected. So anything you're doing that involves people to people is fine, like not going to change as much. Maybe you'll use AI to help you to become better at doing people to people, or to remember things that are going on in people to people, but the people to people part will stay. But anything that's person to non-people, so coding, marketing, in terms of marketing plans and structure, or project management, all these kind of disciplines that are not directly people to people, you're going to be seeing more and more strategic thinking and less execution being necessary as a general immediate trend.
Yeah. I like the way you put it, like human on the loop rather than human in the loop, and the people to people kind of aspects. Well, great chatting with you. I learned a lot during this conversation. Thanks for coming on the show.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Sebastian, thank you for joining us today and for sharing such practical and grounded insights. There's one thing today's conversation reminds us. It's this: AI success is not about chasing innovation faster, but about implementing it smarter. For our listeners, the takeaway is clear. AI is no longer an experiment. It's an operational capability, and the organizations that win will be the ones that combine strategy, governance, and execution with real human judgment. Thank you for tuning into XTraw AI, where we continue to explore the raw conversations shaping the future of AI across enterprises and industries. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow the podcast, share it with your network, and stay tuned for more conversations with leaders building the future of AI responsibly and at scale. Happy predicting the future with AI technologies. Until next time, this is Raghu Banda signing off from XTraw AI. Stay curious, stay responsible, and keep building with AI.